Missing someone.
Sort of dimensional, maybe more blended in the back, and I like, you know, the many pieces in the front. Because I used to have it, my white started coming out here on this side in my 20s. And I used to dye my hair a lot, and then in 2020 I stopped. You know, like right at the pandemic, I wanted all the dye off, so I got a pixie cut, just cut it all off. And so I've been growing it, and then last year my son got married, and I just felt like, I don't know if I want to be gray in my son's wedding pictures. So I got my hair dyed and highlighted again. And then so she did base color and highlights. In January, she retouched the highlights and the base color. But after January, I didn't have her retouch any base color. I told her I wanted gray blending highlights. And so, but this is what came out. So it's a little bit too brown for me. I really want to go back to being a little bit more gray and silver. I just don't want to have to cut my hair short again.
Before she did the base and highlights, was your hair just all virgin?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And you've only done the highlights once?
3 times.
3 times?
Yeah, so it was in maybe 4. So I had it done in October last year, January of this year, April, and then June.
Okay. My only concern is there a reason why these pieces on here are so short? Do you know?
Well, because I had it layered cut, only because, you know, because I was thinner up here before. Well, it's still kind of thin, but her thing was, you know, to layer it so that it gives, you know, a little bit lighter, how do you say it? Volume on top.
Okay.
Because I wanted to grow it out.
Yeah, it's not breakage or anything.
No.
It's the way she cut it.
It's the way she cut it, yeah. It's kind of what I was shooting for.
Okay, so the only thing is you have a lot of warmth and base color in between your highlights. That's going to take time for me to get out.
Okay.
If you want to keep it dimensional.
Right.
So it's definitely going to be a work in progress. I don't love to low light because the low light doesn't last very long, and it's a very temporary fix, and it's like an extra thing too.
Right.
So if it's only temporary, and I just normally don't recommend it unless the client really, really wants it. But today I'm going to break it up with highlights, and then would you be okay with toning it to something more grayish tone with a slight violet-y undertone?
Sure, that's fine.
Just to try to cancel out some of the warmth, because I'm not going to touch up, like, it's impossible for me to touch up every single highlight that you currently have. And I feel like the violet-y gray tone is the only thing that's really going to tone it out and make it look ashier than it is right now. And then slowly as you come in, I'll pick up more pieces and we'll get you a little bit more ashy and gear away from doing any type of base color or anything like that, because that's what makes your hair more brown and warm.
Right. Okay.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So this week I have a brand new client and we're kind of doing a correction gray blending transformation on her. As you can tell from her consultation, she's gotten numerous salon visits of doing a variation of like base color and like just different types of highlights, and she wasn't super happy with the way that it's been blending with her root. So I decided to do my signature gray blending technique, to where I just do highlights and have those highlights get as ashy as possible so that it blends into her natural gray pattern as much as we can without using any type of permanent color to cover her gray. So if you are new here, my signature technique, I always use the Danger Jones lightener, which is a 9+ level lift bleach, and it has bonder inside it, and it just makes the hair feel really good while it's lifting as well too. It has great strength, and if you are new here, I'm really particular with the type of lightener that I use, especially on darker, more like ethnic or Asian hair specifically. And because she even has gray too, you want to make sure that you have something that has good strength in it. If I'm being completely honest with you, I used to use the Blonde Me by Schwarzkopf, and that was for years the only type of lightener that I would use. But the only downside of that lightener that I found when I was using it is that it would puff up really bad and sometimes leak in certain hair textures depending on whatever the client had. But the great thing about this lightener from the Danger Jones line is that it has a really good creamy, thicker consistency, and it never ever leaks on me. I've never seen it do that. And a lot of the times the problem that I had with the Blonde Me lightener from Schwarzkopf is sometimes it would leak and you would just have to stop the entire lightening service and just pretty much rinse out those foils until like everything was out, and it would just kind of delay the process of getting the client hair a little bit lighter. So I absolutely love using this bleach because it's really great for foils. You could even use it for hand painting. You could use it on scalp. It does have seaweed in it to help with the sensitive scalps and irritation and all of that. So I love it for that. And I also really like the fact that wherever you put it, it kind of stays put. I found that with like the Blonde Me or any other lightener, sometimes it would like puff up or expand in the foil, and sometimes that would be okay in certain situations, but most of the time it would be a little bit problematic because when you're doing foils and like working so closely to a line of demarcation or so closely to areas that have previous highlights, it could be a little bit risky in those areas. So I really love this bleach because it's such a creamy consistency that it really does stay put wherever you put it, regardless if it's in a foil, open air, or on scalp, which is really amazing. And it's really rare to find that in a bleach as well. So with this application, I'm doing my signature technique. I started in the nape, did a few detail hairlines, and the rest of the head I'm going to be doing slices. I'm probably taking about 1/2 inch in between my sections right above the top crown of her head, though I might take a little bit less than 1/2 inch of a section, maybe more closer to like 1/4 inch in between, or even less, because I want to make sure that these foils are nice and blended. And the reason being is because I'm going in and really just doing slices to kind of give the most impact within each foil, because I'm all about working smarter and not harder when doing any type of foil application, because you know, time is money in the salon, and most importantly too, you want to try and get the best results with any type of placement that you're doing and have something that is really effective to where the client really feels like you gave them the closest result to their goal. And so I really feel like when you're doing a full application or transformation like this, and it's something that is super blended, when utilizing slices, you're able to get that really high impact blonding compared to if I were to do weaves. Now, I'm not totally against doing weaves, but I'm just saying when you're doing a full application like this for a first time client who's never done, like you've never done their highlights before, it's a really good idea to start off with slices and then maybe transition to weaves later on to get more of a blended look, because I just feel like slices give you the most impact and the most color. And when you're trying to do a corrective color like this, you want to try and make sure that you get rid of a lot of their color as much as possible. So after I do that mohawk, I do some detail weaves around the hairline, and that's really the only time I'll do a weave other than a slice for this type of application. And then I do connect the front and the back and do that whole side section all in one go. Once I'm done with that, I'll have my assistant kind of separate the hair in between the foils, which is the dimension that I left out, and I go in and try to carefully pick out all the darker pieces to kind of tip them out and try and get them a little bit lighter. This is going to give the effect that the ends are a little bit lighter, so I'm really just tipping out any areas that need to be a little bit lightened. I find that this really elevates any type of balayage look that you do, and when you're doing this, the key to getting the closest, most beautiful blend is really to tease, elevate, and over direct. And if you do those three things when you're doing your teases and make sure that they're nice and see-through, you will get the most beautiful blend ever. And when I do my teases, I always make sure I use 20 volume, nothing higher than that, because I do put them under like medium heat. So now I'm pulling out her foils. I let her foils lift to about a level 9 at the root. Some of the ends lifted closer to like a level 8 because they had that previous permanent color on them, and I really wanted to be careful. So I didn't let the ends over process or the root over process. Once whichever the hair was the lightest point, which was the root, lifted to like a level 9, I just rinsed out the foils and started to tone, because I really don't want to over process. Whenever you're doing like a color correction like this, you just want to lift the hair to wherever the lightest part is and then stop there, because that way you can re-hit the warmer areas later without over processing the areas that are ready. Now I'm going in with some gloss toners for the root shadow. I mixed up a level 6 ash. So by doing that, I mixed up a 5-1 with a 7-1 in the Danger Jones gloss toners to kind of give it a nice little shadow root. And then for the mids and ends, I'm using a rapid toner that has primarily violet in it with a little bit of silver. Now, because her ends lifted a little bit warmer, I wanted to make sure that my gray toner was going to be a little bit more violet to kind of cancel out a lot of that yellow, because it didn't get light enough quite yet. And I usually will apply this on the mid, brush that out, and then apply to the ends and kind of leave this on for about 10-15 minutes before I see any of the yellow peeking through. And for this, because the ends didn't really lighten as light as the root area, I really wanted to just make sure that I didn't see any more yellow. And so by doing that, I was okay with it overtoning a little bit, because even though the ends didn't get as light, I knew that doing a more violet gray toner, this was just going to fade into, or like tone into, more of like a neutral ashy brown with the slightest hue of violet. So after I tone my client, I always love to blow dry with my Parlux blow dryer. I mixed in some It's a 10 leave-in conditioner with some Verb Ghost Oil for her mids and ends, applied that on the mids and ends, and now I'm going in with my Parlux blow dryer and just giving her a nice blowout with my Olivia Garden extra large round brushes. These are literally my go-to for any type of blowout for hair that is not too frizzy. Now, if I was going to blow dry hair that had a bit of texture and more frizz to it, I would definitely use my Ibiza brushes, but since her texture isn't too frizzy, I am going in with my Olivia Garden, and I just am carefully smoothing out her hair so that I could fix and touch up her haircut after. So whenever a color client comes in and they're going to be getting a haircut, I always do a rough haircut before we do the color to get off a lot of that length and layer and weight out of the hair. And then afterwards, I always like to blow dry the hair straight, especially if they wear their hair straight, to kind of just check my haircut and just touch it up and make sure that everything is perfectly even and the way that it lays, swoops, and that I can ensure that I've taken out enough weight. And so after I've given her a straight blowout, I am going in right now and just pretty much just checking her haircut, making sure there's no random long pieces, everything is nice and even, and then wherever she needs maybe a bit of shorter layer or some weight taken out, that we do so before we style her. So after the haircut and blow dry, I like to go in with my Olivia Garden curling iron to kind of curl the hair. I like to set it with my Milbon texture spray. If you guys haven't used this texture spray, literally smells like a dream. It's so good. It smells so clean and fresh that I've always sell out of it whenever I have it in stock because my clients love it that much. It gives a bit of hold and grit of texture without making it too hard or crunchy. And then I pretty much just like set it with any type of hairspray. I'm not like super picky with any of my hairsprays, but I find that if it is a flexible hairspray, you can hold it a little bit closer. If it is like a hard hold hairspray, I would just mist it far away.
The tone looks good. Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And the blend, you like the roots? Yes.
Alrighty guys, so here is the finished look. I absolutely love the way that this blended, and I feel like this is going to fade out really pretty too against her gray. So to kind of maintain this more ashy brown tone, she can still use that purple shampoo. Of course it won't tone it exactly like how she's leaving the salon today, but at least some purple shampoo will help tone out some of the yellow peeking through in between her touch-ups. And eventually when we are able to kind of get her a little bit lighter and kind of lift out a lot of that old permanent color, we can eventually get her to be a little bit more closer to her goal photos. But I feel like this was a great first session, and it just will create a very soft grow out anyways. Alrighty guys, that is it for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and as always, I will talk to you guys next week.